Ho ho ho! Hello boys and girls, welcome to the Wrath Vent Calendar. Yeah, I think we can do better than that.
What do you think that will look like?
Well, if it isn't the Wrath of Cortex. This game was the first in the mainline series after Naughty Dog's departure. A new generation of consoles was underway and Universal wanted Crash and Spyro to be part of the action. Developers Traveler's Tales, who developed the Toy Story games back then, as well as some Sonic titles, were tasked to have a new Crash game ready for the PlayStation 2 in 2001. And on October 30th, the game was released in North America to very mixed reception. Eventually, in 2002, Wrath of Cortex would be ported to the Xbox and GameCube with Eurocom handling the GameCube port. Interestingly, the PS2 version was co-published by Universal and Konami. Yeah, Crash could have made a cameo in Evolution's skateboarding, technically.
Growing up as a kid, I first played this game on PS2, so I hated the fact that the game took forever to load. However, I have more time with the Xbox version since I was able to hold on to the Crash Super Pack, a 2-in-1 bundle that came with this and Nitro card. So that's the version I used to record the footage for this video. All it does is reduce the load times and give all the animals fur. It's the same game.
Now, I've occasionally gotten questions about whether or not I would revisit Wrath of Cortex, but for the longest time, I would just tell people to watch the Christmas special I did back in 2019. However, that video is nowhere near accurate to my thoughts and feelings, as it was never really made with the quote-unquote review mindset. So, Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Cortex, which I'll be referring to as Wrath throughout the video, is making a comeback on this channel, hopefully for the last time. We'll get it right this time, people, I promise.
So, without any further ado, let's pop this game in and see if it really is as bad as I and many other people said it was all those years ago.
This may come as a shock to those who have seen my previous videos on this game, but I did this thing called growing up, and I actually don't mind Wrath. It's not the immediate choice to get my Crash Bandicoot fixation, but it is nice to revisit every so often. That said, I still have some issues, and I'll definitely be talking about them. So, by now, we all know the story. Uka Uka's NFT profits are down, so Cortex makes the ultimate right-click Bandicoot to screenshot Crash's pictures and pass them off as his own. Aiding him are the 4 elemental masks, who have been awakened from their slumber. Sound familiar? Oh, wait. Spoilers, John. The elementals need to be imprisoned before they spread the word of monkey PNGs. Crystals need to be collected in order to do so. Hang on, weren't the crystals finite? I get including them in CTR and Bash because those games aren't part of the main timeline. This game, however, is. At this point, we should have collected all the crystals, but no. Turns out there are 25 more. Then there would be more crystals in future games, but I'm getting off topic. So Crash, Coco, and Aku Aku use the portal chamber that Coco invented to travel to a warp room and collect the crystals to put a stop to the elemental masks. The masks give the new Bandicoot Crunch different abilities and powers. There's the Earth Elemental Rocco, the Water Elemental Wawa, the Fire Elemental Pyro, and the Air Elemental Lolo. These masks were voiced by well-known VAs, which is kinda strange. I guess we know where all the budget went. Lolo's VA, Jess Harnell, would eventually become the voice of Crash from Tag Team Racing to Nitro Fueled. Good for him. Anyway, we begin the game with Arctic Antics, and I have to admit that this game is not too bad under the correct parameters. When it plays like Warped, it can be quite fun. However, this game tries several times to establish its own identity within a tired practice, and as a result, it tends to fall flat on its face a lot.
It's hard to explain. Wrath feels like the devs tried to cram every idea they had into one package, but they couldn't fit everything in due to the crunch time placed on them by Universal. So they scaled back and worked with what they already had. They played it safe and tried to emulate what made Warped great to the best of their abilities. Now, as a kid, I would have taken this information at face value and been pissed. However, now that I've matured and developed a better understanding of the video game making process, I respect the executive decision that Traveler's Tales made to maintain that deadline. With that being said, this did not stop them from trying to include as many different gameplay styles as possible. I swear, this game is Crash Bandicoot's Action 52. It's classified as a platformer, but the 13 vehicles are making me press X to doubt on that.
It's no secret that Wrath features way too many levels that involve a vehicle, whether partially or from start to finish. In fact, let's count how many. We have Tornado Alley, Bamboozled, Compactor Reactor, Rumble in the Rocks, Jungle Rumble, Seashell Shenanigans, That Sinking Feeling, H2O No, Tsunami, Smokey and the Bandicoot, Eskimo Roll, Fahrenheit Frenzy, Crashes to Ashes, Avalanche, Droid Void, Crashteroids, Coral Canyon, Atmospheric Pressure, Gold Rush, Medieval Madness, Crate Balls of Fire, Ghost Town, Ice Station Bandicoot, Solar Bowler, and Force of Nature. 22 levels and 3 bosses, totaling 25 out of 35 levels. That is roughly 71% of the entire game. Holy shit. Now, hold on. Not every level in that count has you controlling a vehicle throughout the entire level, so let's take those out. Removing Compactor Reactor, Jungle Rumble, Seashell Shenanigans, H2O No, Tsunami, Fahrenheit Frenzy, Crashes to Ashes, Avalanche, Droid Void, Coral Canyon, Gold Rush, Crate Balls of Fire, and Force of Nature significantly drops that total to 12 levels, or 34% of the game. I removed Force of Nature because you do technically start and end that level on foot. I also removed Seashell Shenanigans and Coral Canyon because when you're not in the infamous submarine, you're still playing as Crash, just under different circumstances. The remaining 13 levels I just mentioned make up 52% of the total vehicle levels, or 37% of the game.
This has been Quick Maths with JuniorNitro. Tune in next week when I show you how to evade the IRS after you refuse to do your taxes. W.GG, use code NITRO10 for 10% off.
So yeah, that's a lot of vehicular transportation. Hashtag not my platformer. But maybe we can excuse the abundance of vehicles if they control good. Well, some of them do? But for the most part, these vehicles are absolutely dreadful. As far as the platforming goes, Crash feels kind of floaty. The jumps almost feel like they don't have any weight to them, and the same can be said about Coco's jump. Speaking of Coco, she has an ability where if you press the slide button, she doesn't slide. She instead stops in place and does a pathetic leg kick. It's completely fucking pointless. So pointless that I've never used it. Crash's slide feels a bit off. It doesn't really feel that effective most of the time. Well, maybe except for speeding up walks down straightaways. That's about it though. The audio mixing isn't that great either. On Xbox, the Warp Room cutscenes don't mute the music so you can hear the dialogue. Because of this, I manually turned the music down after every boss fight. Some of the compression is really crap. Crash's whoa sounds alright, but the spin sound is a slightly higher pitch than previous games. The jump sound is roughly the same. There was one occasion where it was hard to hear Aku Aku's explanation at the beginning of Crashteroids. And what the fuck is up with the crystal sound? That just doesn't sound good. You lose almost no momentum when you double jump. The Death Tornado spin doesn't gradually speed up the sound effect each time you spin like it did in Warped. You can't slide spin jump into a belly flop. You can't slide spin. Bazooka aiming is worse. Tiptoeing across nitro crates is fucking stupid. And the ice physics? This game actually got that kinda right. The game's environments aren't too bad, all things considered. For a 2001 PS2 game, some levels look pretty stunning, but there are some stinkers too. Some of the set pieces are very clever, like in Tsunami for example. In this level, Coco runs away from a tsunami, no shit, using her scooter. When you make it to the end, you can use the blue gem from Arctic Antics to trek back through the wreckage. I love that, it's ingenious. The character models, on the other hand, Yikes. What the fuck happened here? The masks look fine, but everybody else looks like they were made out of Play-Doh. It's even worse on Xbox because every marsupial animal is given fur. The soundtrack is also a highlight for this game. Every song sounds really good. Some of my personal favorites are Wizards and Lizards, Tsunami, Wuthering Heights, Gold Rush, and Eskimo Roll. Speaking of the music, for whatever reason, on Xbox and GameCube, the song for the Gauntlet plays in Medieval Madness, something that wasn't an issue on the PS2. Here's something else that bothers me. This game does not require you to obtain every colored gem to access the bonus gem route in Cortex Vortex. You only need the green one from Wizards and Lizards. This is a major far cry from Crash 2 and Warped. There are some instances where if you're just a frame too late with your jump, it won't register. You will die and go back to the previous checkpoint only to see Crash jump in place when you respawn. It's like the game is saying, yes, you did jump, we got it. Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Gaslighting. In the levels that contain a death route, you lose access to it if you die at any point in the level, regardless of whether or not you reached it. This was not a thing in Crash 2 or Warped. Why is it like this? Oh hey, the campusing segments are back as well! Jeez, was it always this slow? Hang on, let me speed this up. Damn, Crash needs to hit the gym. Also, why did Traveler's Tales feel the need to change the loading screen? I always thought the PS2 screen looked really cool, in spite of its length. Here, you just see either Crash or Coco fall down the green void as fast as possible as the level or warp room loads. Well, at least it's better than what the GameCube got. Speaking of things happening as fast as possible, remember how in Crash 2 and Warped, Crash was super expressive when it came to collectibles? Upon returning to the warp room, he would be front and center. He proudly pulls out everything you collected, and when you got a gem or relic, he would do his signature dance. In Wrath, he's further away from the camera, he flaccidly warps back in front of the level you came from, he gets everything out quickly and does a half-assed jump. No grin, no dance, no charm, and most importantly, no bitches. Maybe this was done to finish the game in time, but it's still a letdown. Plus, they had the chance to remedy this in the Xbox and GameCube ports, but no. They ballsed it up.
And speaking of ballsing things up, let's talk about the bosses. Or the one boss that you fight 5 times.
Yeah, since our old enemies have been downgraded to minor inconveniences in the Atmosphere levels, or kamikaze pilots in the flying levels, Jesus Christ, we are instead fighting Cortex's newest creation, a super strong Bandicoot named Crunch. In each fight, Crunch is aided by one of the elementals. You'll be running into rocks with the Atmosphere, jumping from platform to platform while evading his attacks and trying not to drown, running away from him as he throws fire rocks, then spraying him with water to cool him off, shooting him down with the plane from Tornado Alley, and avoiding all of the elementals at once until Crunch gets tired of pressing buttons, which gives you the chance to shoot him, and then spin into Cortex. After each fight, you get spat back out to the warp room with a new power-up. Every power-up from Warped returns, and they need to be obtained again. In addition to those, we also have a new power-up, the Sneaky Shoes. This power-up allows you to tiptoe across a line of nitros without getting hurt. This is the dumbest fucking thing in the entire game. This power-up only appears once in the series, and rightfully so. These fights are meh at best and fucking pathetic at worst. 3 of them put you in a vehicle for the first or second time. To put it in perspective, the entire PS1 trilogy combined only consisted of 2 boss fights in a vehicle. Cortex in Crash 2 and Engine in Warped. That in itself speaks volumes.
God, not even the boss fights are safe from the vehicle abundance. The 2 that didn't include a vehicle are arguably the best ones, and one of them doesn't even last a fucking minute. You know, having said that, I will admit that Atmospheric Pressure was pretty good, so I'll give that one a pass.
So once Cortex and Crunch are defeated, Uka Uka reminds us that, like Warped, we still have to collect the gems. Also like Warped, he fails to mention the time relics that you need in order to access the secret warp room, which contains the last 10 gems in the game. Yes, the time relics are back, providing a new challenge to the levels. Race to the end while breaking time crates that freeze the clock to acquire a relic. Fun facts. You don't lose Aku Aku when you start a time trial, so I recommend picking up a couple masks to make your life easier. Invincibility does not make you immune to lava pits anymore. I don't like this change. In the chase levels, whatever is chasing you doesn't give you the time deduction from the crates. They will break, but the clock will keep going, so you need to break them yourself. As far as the submarine is concerned, it's a game of fucking chance whether or not you're gonna hit the enemy right in front of you, and I hate it. It's awful. You stand the best chance if you keep firing. Also, you don't need all gold or better for 106% completion. However, I did what I did in Warped and I managed to obtain all 30 platinum relics. This was something I never did before, and despite the trials and tribulations on some of these levels, on top of a brief surge in the house that knocked the power out for a second, making me replay most of the 6th warp room, I did it. And the weird thing is, it didn't take as long as it did for me in Warped. It did, however, make me want to do this.
Oh, this is stupid! Game cheating!
By the way, that video is satire. The dude makes those kinds of videos all the time.
So, after all of that, what's my reward? One last cutscene to conclude the story. The elementals are imprisoned again, Cortex's space station self-destructs, the Bandicoots return home with Crunch, who is now free from Cortex's control, and Uka Uka chases Cortex around on a block of ice in the frozen Antarctic wastes for the next 3 years. That's it though. You don't get any special effects for the credits, like the confetti in CTR. Coco doesn't give you a bonus gem for collecting everything like she did in Warped, and this is a minor one, but when you do collect everything, the game doesn't lock everything else out until you beat Crunch again. Everything remains open. In Warped, when you got every gem, you couldn't return to any level until you defeated Cortex. For every step forward Warped took, Wrath took 2 steps back. The last warp room consists of the Gauntlet, again, but now in the dark, with Coco, a minecart race against Crunch that allows you to put the controller down and do nothing to win. That was not a joke. Rings of Power at home, an Atmosphere level in the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism, and Coco's X Games audition tape. Riveting.
And now, without any smoother way to segue into the next topic of discussion, Traveler's Tales has a nitro fetish.
Don't believe me? Look at these box totals. At least half of them are nitros. Force of Nature, the final level in the game, contains 111 boxes. There are only 40 normal crates in the level, meaning it has 71 nitros. Holy fuck! Is this supposed to be like some sort of intimidation factor? This is unbelievably hysterical. And the nitro abundance doesn't end there. You will see a bunch of them in the 5 death routes, 2 of which are in the first area, by the way. Some levels have a second gem that you need a colored gem in order to collect. The red gem route in Banzai Banzai allows you to obtain the Super Belly Flop, which you don't even need, so why is it here? Oh right, because it was in Warped. Look, as this game stands on its own, it's really not that bad. It also has very few glitches, if any. It's one of the most stable games in the whole series. However, once you put it up against its predecessors, the games that it was supposed to be as good or better than, it's a massive disappointment. It's pretty good when it emulates Warped, but not so good when it tries new things. And by that I mean all the different vehicles this game includes, which was also what Warped did. Okay, so this game isn't actually original at all. Actually, scratch that. The soundtrack and boss fights are original, but that's about it.
This game exists for one reason only. Universal wanted a multi-platform Crash game ASAP. As a result, they didn't give Traveler's Tales enough time to adapt to new hardware and make a much more memorable game than what we got. TT scaled a lot back to get the game done in time, which is very admirable. I highly recommend checking out Jon Burton's videos on his YouTube channel, GameHut. He has one documenting the beta version of Crashes to Ashes, and another one talking about how Wrath of Cortex was supposed to be a completely different game called Crash Bandicoot Worlds. Both videos will be linked in the description. But yeah, that's not what we got. That will forever be a what if. That might also explain why levels like Tsunami, Smokey and the Bandicoot, and Eskimo Roll appear in the fire area. 3 levels that have nothing to do with fire. Well, I guess Smokey counts since it takes place in a hot desert. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let's wrap this up.
This game was meant to be so much more, but thanks to Universal's incompetence, TT's full potential could not be realized. You know something? This reminds me of how Pac-Man World 3 was originally going to be Pac-Man Adventures, or Crash Twinsanity was supposed to be Crash Bandicoot Evolution. That just goes to show how complicated the video game industry can be, man. For all we know, there could be millions of different ideas and concepts that sound like they'd make for great games, but unfortunately never see the light of day. Putting that aside though, we have to critique this game based on what we got, not what we could have gotten. I did the same thing with Twinsanity, and this game will be no exception. As the 4th main game in the series, it definitely shows how tiring the concept became. The controls are weightless, the soundtrack is really good, the graphics are good by the level standards, but bad by the model standards, and the overall story is pretty weak. Including 4 masks that need 5 crystals each to imprison doesn't make that much sense when the game has 25 crystals. The last 5 crystals exist purely because Crash 2 and Warped had 25 crystals. In fact, this whole game is the Temu version of Warped on PS2. Now that we know that Development Hell was a contributor to this, it's more understandable as to why the devs went down this route, but it's still no excuse. In conclusion, the Wrath of Cortex does have its moments, but they are very short-lived. And for the record, this game does use more colors than just gray. Having said that, however, there are some levels that do look dark and lifeless. The overall gameplay is fine though, but there are way too many vehicles and way too many levels that include them. You know, a YouTuber I'm well acquainted with, Monstro, you may have heard of him, came up with a very accurate analogy for this game when he talked about it in 2020. He said that it was like if you took an English sentence on Google Translate and translated it to another language and then back to English. The result is something that's a little off. That was very accurate and very sexy. So while this game definitely isn't the best in the series, it's not the worst either. I think another rescore is in order here. Initially, I was only going to bump it up to a 4, but truth be told, that would imply this game is mediocre, and I don't necessarily think it is. So, Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Cortex definitively gets a 5 out of 10. And honestly, I think we're better off with what we ultimately got, because what if what we could have gotten ended up not being good? Yeah, it all sounds awesome, but there's a chance that it might have bombed. We'll never know. This game is enjoyable in some aspects, but a lot of the flaws stick out like a sore thumb. I honestly don't blame Toys for Bob for wanting to split the timeline, giving Warped a successor it rightfully deserves. That's not to say Wrath should be forgotten, however. After all, without this game, we wouldn't have Crunch. If you want to give this game a go, if you haven't already, get it on Xbox. You'll lose your patience with the PS2 load times, and the GameCube version should just not be touched at all.
This has been a fun journey going back through this game and fully completing it for the first time. I probably won't do it again for a while, but I still liked my time with it. Moshi Moshi? What do you mean I didn't have to do any of that? All I needed was a copy of the game on any console except for PS2 Greatest Hits. And then once I'm at the file name screen, I just type in Wombat and the game gives me everything from the start. There wasn't even anyone on the other end. Oh, hello there, Mr. President. Long time no see. Being Commander-in-Chief isn't easy, huh? It's not that. There was a mistake. They did a recount. I wasn't even close. Aw, I'm sorry to hear that, man. Look at it this way. At least you don't have to worry about death threats because you jacked up the prices. Yeah, but I'm bummed because now I miss out on my lifetime supply of lamb. Oh no. How much lamb did you eat? Too much. Excuse me. Classic Nitro. Hey, just for the shits, and the giggles even, why don't we close this video off by checking out a Crash game I have yet to cover. In order to play this game, I'm gonna need the GameCube version of Wrath. Luckily for me, I happen to know someone who has this game on every console.
Whoa! Hey! Look! We're at a house! We're at a different house, but we're at a house! As you can see, we've got Crash Wrath of Cortex loaded up on the GameCube here. And the reason why is because, well, we are loading. To play this game, you simply boot up your GameCube with Wrath of Cortex, then use a link cable to plug your Game Boy Advance to the 4th controller port. Then you can play Crash Bandicoot Blast. Your goal is to shoot floating PNGs of your enemies and avoid shooting your friends. When your game is over, you get an advert for the huge adventure. And yes, it's as intriguing as it sounds. I could go into more detail, but this footage speaks for itself. And yeah, this is Crash Bandicoot Blast. Was it worth hunting down a GameCube, a Game Boy Advance, a copy of Wrath of Cortex, and a link cable? You tell me. Man, Catacross was right, this is shit.